everybody. Welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
LaMarr, Darnell Shields.
What's up, Sound Bombing community? This is your man, Dr. LaMarr Darnell Shields. And again, I'm excited for another day. I'm excited just to be alive, and I'm excited to be talking to you once again. As you know, we've been having some amazing shows. We've had some of the dopest guests to come and bless this microphone who's joining me in the BalmShelter. And I'm so excited about all the people that you've gotten a chance to meet. I'm hoping that you're growing. I hope that you're learning. It's my hope and prayer that you are definitely staying safe, because as we look at the news, as we listen to social media, some of the people, not everyone is being affected by this disease, but some way we're being affected. But everyone is not dying. Everyone is not sick. And so we want to celebrate those people that are listening to our show. We want to honor those folks who might have transitioned during this time. Prayers go out to families and friends. I've been talking to some of my folks across the country, and no one in my immediate circle has been affected by this. But again, if you're one of my friends and one of my close friends or family members, and it's one of your friends that's affected by it, then I am being affected by it. So just like you, I am trying to stay sane. I am trying to be creative with my own children. Let me just remove that word because I hate the word try. I am being creative. I am working with my children. I am putting these calendars for them to do these activities that keep their schedule. So we're doing a lot of amazing things. And today I want to talk about what the artist community are doing, what the creators of the world are actually doing with this around this coronavirus. Well, we know that the coronavirus pandemic and the subsequent lockdown has brought a huge disruption to our daily lives and behavior. During this time, brands are unsure how to proceed, but they do have a vital role to play in the fight, and people expect them to step up and lead during this difficult time. Well, my next guest is doing just that. Marjorie Nicole, the founder of NSAA African Creations, is a woman on a mission. She has turned creativity, skill, and passion into a revenue-generating business using African fabrics and American tailoring. Marjorie broke into the world of couture fashion without the use of commercial patterns. Even while teaching math and fighting for at-risk youth, fashion and owning her own business has always been at the front of her mind. Because of inspirational women entrepreneurs like Madam C.J. Walker, Marjorie has managed to grow her handmade, African-inspired design company in ways that have allowed her to become a full-time entrepreneur. Her inspiration and motivation come from everyday conversations when talking to women who have difficult experiences finding clothes that meet their specific needs and desires. As a former math teacher, she's used to solving problems, big and small. Marjorie, welcome to the BalmShelter.
Thank you. And hello to everyone. I'm hopeful and prayerful that everyone is safe and everyone is getting along at home during this difficult time.
So before we get into some of these amazing and new designs that you've been working on, I want to go way, way, way back. Walk our listeners through how you go from being a math teacher, an educator, a change agent, fighting for young people, to then designing clothes. Explain that to me.
Well, it all kind of comes together and it goes way back. Started in the 90s. I was part of a Pan-African community, And I was excited about change, and I was excited about our community growing collectively and about me growing individually. I started a little late in life. I didn't go through the rites of passage with some powerful women until in my 20s. So that was when the culture and my desire for people of color to do better and be better. So it started back in the 90s, and I wore African clothes exclusively during that time. And me being a plus-size woman, they never quite fit me right, or I could not find the stylish stuff. So I was stuck wearing oversized muumuu dresses and African prints. And I was stuck wearing stuff that did not compliment me as a young 22, 23-year-old. But I wanted to be wrapped in the culture, so I wore it anyway.
And you know, it's
so
interesting. Go ahead, keep going.
So some years later, just playing around with African fabric, I took one of the oversized dresses that I had, and I was like, I'm going to try to shape this to me. And I really didn't understand how, but I understood angles, shapes, sizes, and contouring. So I took the dress apart, put it back together, and that was the first thing I ever did. I ever sewn.
So did anybody teach you this? Like, did you grow up with a grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle who had a sewing machine around? I mean, I know you use your math skills to sort of break that down, but was there anybody in your family that you picked this skill up from?
I had never even seen anybody sew until I did that first dress.
Wow.
I had never seen, and I did not have a sewing machine because I was so afraid of a sewing machine that I cut that and hand sewn that dress, without a sewing machine.
So what was in you that said to you, Marjorie Nicole, you can do this? What was there a voice in your mind? Was it someone around you in your space? Because again, you're talking about sewing. I'm like you. When I went to Catholic school and growing up in Chicago, and my teacher, Miss Johnson, who I still love and I still stay in contact with, she got tired of the boys' buttons falling off of their sleeves. She said, boy, I'm going to teach you all how to sew. And so she showed us how to sew these buttons on so I wouldn't have to depend on my mother. I can only imagine, looking at a sewing machine, because it does seem very, very scary. So you don't have any professional training in designing and making clothes. Where did this come from?
That's a really interesting question. But you asked me like what made me think I could do that. Well, I'm one of those crazy people that believe I could do anything, and all things are possible through me. So that's first and foremost. I don't think there was a time that I even thought that I was going to do something on this scale. I thought it was a dress. It belonged to me. I can cut it. If I ruin it, it's mine. No problem. I'm sure I can make something happen. Worst case scenario, it'll be a cute little head wrap one day if I mess this all the way up. So it was just a lack of fear that enabled me to just take that first step. The next step to the sewing machine didn't come till later. You and everyone else who've ever met me knows Kennedy very, very well. He's a super encouraging partner. He's a great person to travel this life with. But a few months later, at my birthday, he purchased me a sewing machine. He set it on the table, and he said, you have a gift. You're going to go very far with this. I can't wait to see how this unfolds, and I want you to not be intimidated by the machine that's going to help change your life. And I believed Kennedy. I believed that I was going to do great things with that sewing machine, and I opened it up, and I read the whole manual, front to back, troubleshooting everything. And I was like, I am going to make some beautiful things with this. Still didn't understand the scale that I would be making things, but I understood that I was transitioning into a different part of my life.
And so what is your favorite part of being a fashion designer?
My favorite part is seeing everyday people smiling, sending me pictures, feeling good about their clothes that they normally had issues purchasing. These women building confidence. When your clothes fit you right and you feel beautiful, you just come off as a whole different confident woman. And watching that transition for some of my customers who may be plus size, who may be really, really small, really, really tall, really, really short, and never quite felt comfortable in the clothes that they were purchasing that was kind of pre-made for body type A or B. So just seeing their transition and seeing how they fall in love with themselves and the clothes and the way they look, and understanding that that's just uniqueness about them, and it's not a problem. Your size, your shape is not a problem. It's just a uniqueness. Let's just get together and figure out how to make that the most beautiful part of you.
You know, it's interesting.
Seeing that transition in women.
It's interesting. You talk about plus size women. I love clothes. I'm not a fashion designer. I don't even know what size my children wear. Sometimes I got to take them to the store. Sometimes I send photos with my daughters. It's so challenging. With my son, it's just so easy. Why did you want to spend your time and energy focusing on the plus size community, that particular community in general?
Because that's the community that I am a part of. And I know the challenges firsthand. I know walking into the store and nothing quite fitting me, because even though I'm plus size, you know, my shoulders are broad, but my waist is kind of small, so the shirt doesn't fit right. I know that struggle of just being disappointed. None of this stuff fits me. I need something to wear, and you just get frustrated. And then you just buy these oversized clothes that doesn't fit you because it's easy, because it's convenient. You throw it on, and you don't feel good about it, and you don't feel good about yourself. I know that feeling so well. But it's not just the plus size. I have a lot of customers who are size 0s and 1s who can't go to the store and buy small enough clothes on the rack to fit them, so they wind up buying children's clothes, and they just don't feel good about that either.
So when you look at an artist that just popped up on a scene named Lizzo, who really blew up the scene when she performed at Coachella. I was very familiar with her music, but when she went to Coachella, it took it to a whole nother level. Plus size woman who was unapologetically proud of her body and her shape. And you look at how some people send these negative images and memes about her. What are some of your thoughts about a person like Lizzo, who just now is making it more acceptable for women of your size, and even women who are much larger, be acceptable with their own body shape?
I am excited about it, because just like everything else, everything has a turn. We go through different phases. I am excited because that work has been laying down to grow and to build for years, probably even decades. So I'm excited that we don't have to be apologetic. I'm excited that plus size women are seen for the value and the beauty that we are on a day-to-day basis. And I'm excited that she's proud and able to stand where she is, because it's important, especially for the younger women who I may not have access, or they may not have access to a black woman or a plus size black woman that's prideful. So it's good that she's on that larger scale to be seen. And I'm excited about it. I mean, I think sometimes she could be a little more appropriate, but I'm excited about who she is and what she stands for, because I don't really care what size you are. Just showing your whole booty at the NBA game, it's just not okay on any level, on any size. But I'm proud of how she stands up for herself.
You know, and that's a great way of saying that, like, not having to agree fully with how someone is presenting themselves, but the fact that this is a woman who is proud of her shape and her size. And I'm sure, you know, these are some obstacles that she had to overcome as a plus size woman. Let's talk about you, little girl growing up. You're struggling with your size. You become a woman. You walk into these stores. You're struggling with, you know, these images, these body shapes. That these clothes are not fitting you. What message do you have for little Marjories of the world who want to do what you're doing, but then also struggle with their size?
If they're struggling with their size, first off, it's not their fault. It is not your fault that you're struggling with your size. It's the fault of the media and everybody around you who made you believe that your size wasn't okay, because it is okay and it's beautiful. That would be number one, I would say. And number two, I really want younger women to understand that they have everything inside of them that they need to do anything in this world that they want, whether it be sewing, entrepreneurship, educators, no matter what it is, you have it already. You just have to tap into that space. It's inside. It's nothing external that you need to accomplish your goals. It's external stuff that can help you along the way, make it easier, but you don't need it. You can still get there. And I think as a young woman, that's what someone never told me. So it took me until my 30s to sew for the first time, even though it's something I probably could have done earlier, if I was encouraged in the arts and not just education.
So I'm going to take you back, because we're in the same age bracket. I'm going to take you back to one of my favorite TV shows, The Cosby Show. And we all love The Cosby Shows. People can say whatever they want to say about Dr. Bill Cosby, but that's not why I'm bringing this up. He really focused a lot on images. But I'm about to take you back to the famous scene when his sister Denise decided
Right.
to design him a shirt for this party. The infamous Gordon Gartrell shirt.
It's over, isn't it?
As a Gordon Gartrell?
You don't like it?
Ask me the question again.
You don't like it?
I hate it. Look at it. Oh.
So, do you have a story very similar to a Denise Huxtable story and Theo Huxtable story?
Absolutely. And I still sometimes, to this day, design stuff by accident because it was meant to be something else. But the first time I tried to make a male shirt, because male clothes and female clothes are very different. And I had a perfect example for female clothes because I could try it on. I know how I look, I know how I'm shaped, I know the curves. But with a man's shirt, it's completely different. So I decided I was going to make Kennedy a African print male button-up short sleeve shirt with a pocket. And one of the things I forgot to do was cut the neck hole out. So I had buttons and all kinds of stuff. And halfway through the project, he was like, "Oh, baby, that's nice, but how do I put it on?"
Kennedy is so that's why I love him. So nice.
And with the shirt was all like the buttonholes, like, how you have like double fabric wear buttons. With all of that stuff done, it was kind of late to cut out a neck hole. So I literally scrapped the project and started over again with the neck hole first. But it was just, he tried not to say, "Have you lost your mind? There's no neck hole."
So speaking of that, what has failure taught you about success? Because as a designer,
it has taught me to be more prepared, have a plan. Don't just walk up to the fabric like, "Oh, I'm just going to do what I want to do." No, have a plan. Write it down. Have a thought process in your mind. Okay, neck hole first. Okay, arm sleeves. Okay, but so it's just, even though I don't buy commercial patterns, I still should create something before I'm creating something.
And so how do you stay up to date regarding fashion? I know you use a lot of African prints, and I really, really appreciate that. And I love how the fact that you talked about how these African garments don't fit. They just like big schmuck sometimes. I'm serious. My best friend Kevin, when he lived in Nigeria, he brought me this amazing design from Abidjan with these amazing cufflinks. It was a dashiki, and it fit me perfectly. And I was like, yo, this is dope. But a lot of the dashikis, a lot of the clothes that you are talking about, they like box fit. How do you then stay up to date regarding fashion?
Well, I allow myself to be influenced by several different places and people. So when I'm traveling abroad, when I'm in Africa, I'm looking at how they are creating. When I go, I spend time with seamstress. I walk in a room. I'll be like, "Hey, can I pay you to just make me something?" And I watch you, or I just walk through the marketplaces. I also, on purpose, travel to other places on the way home. So if I go somewhere really far, I'm going to stop at 1 or 2 countries on the way home, and I'm going to just walk through boutiques. I'm going to watch how people are dressed. I'm going to spend time with their culture so that I'm not stuck in one mindset or one view of fashion. So just having a broad range of experiences with different people, different cultures, different ways of doing things, and accepting and embracing each one of those and incorporating it in what I'm doing. And that kind of makes my stuff unique because my perspective is really broad.
So speaking of unique, and I want to talk about roadblocks. So what do you do in situations in which you are lacking ideas or your designs just don't really satisfy you yet?
I call those my bored seasons, where I'm just bored with what I'm doing. I feel like I'm just throwing on demand, on order. None of this stuff is exciting me. I tend to pull away and take a break. And not so much as like a break from fashion. Just, you know what, I'm not going to sew today and tomorrow. I'm just going to go out and just be around people. I may just go to the park. I may go to a museum, and I'm going to sit. I'm going to be inspired by the colors, the paintings, but just by people walking, just by people, being in their own clothes and looking comfortable or uncomfortable. Just just sitting and being still and just letting the world move around me kind of sparks in my mind what clothes is all about. It's a covering, and it says to the world who we are, what we are, and how we feel about ourselves. So to get inspired, I have to be around the people and see what they're saying to me through how they're dressed.
So if I walked into a boutique and I saw a variety of different African prints and designs, how would I know Marjorie Nicole's design?
That's a good question, because I'm always, at least 2 or 3 times a week, one of my regular customers will call me and be like, I saw a girl in the mall and I know it was your skirt, and took a picture of it and sent it to me. I think one of the things that you will know immediately is the quality of fabric. There is a lot of imitation fabric. It's printed in other places that's not Africa.
Man, let me tell you, I got a dashiki that said made in China. I'm like, hold up, made in what the hell is going on? Like, my African brothers and sisters cannot make this stuff and send it to us. So I'm telling you, speaking from the real truth, that I've actually picked up some material that was made in different countries.
It is. And here's the thing. It's not even that it was made in other countries. When I was in Accra the last time in August, I literally ran across like a strip mall. It was called the China Mall in Accra, Ghana. And it was basically a mall that reproduced African fabrics, African clothes, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, like all the name brands for prices that were dirt cheap. And the thought process for them was, we're going to make it really cheap. We're going to make it really crappy. And anybody who visits Africa that want to kind of grab some stuff and take it back to their country to resell, it's so cheap that it's easy for them to do. I was so heartbroken walking through this. They didn't even create a name. They called it the China Mall. In Accra, Ghana. So even people that's going to Ghana or order for, they may believe that they're getting something that they're not when they get it shipped back at home. But they are also taking the stuff back to India and back to China and back to Thailand and just reproducing those beautiful prints on the cheapest quality fabric they can find. And it's heartbreaking. It's a couple of things you can look at when you look at your African fabric. The color on the inside should be just as much or exactly the same as the color on the outside of the fabric. If you see splotches of white on the inside, it was not created in Africa.
So she is debunking all of the myths of this whack material that many of you all are looking at. Don't be embarrassed. Just support Marjorie Nicole's designs, because she is on point. Again, I've traveled to Africa. At that time I didn't see a huge Asian influence in the market. I did feel that the material was much thicker than some of the other material. I want you to now walk us through, we want to get into your creative mind. So when you walk us through the process of what creation looks like you. So as you approach the sewing machine, as you approach the needle and thread, what is that process like for you? Because for example, when I sit down in the studio in front of the microphone, I light a candle, I say a silent prayer, I take a couple of deep breaths, and I then imagine what my listeners might feel when I am talking to another person on the other side of this microphone. And so I have created rituals to really, really create a future for what I want it to look like after the show is over. Is there anything that you do to then prepare for creation of an idea or design or a particular project?
Well, there's 2 things I do. Number one, I have a folder in my phone of customer pictures that people send me pictures, like on their baby shower, their wedding, the first day of school, stuff I've made. And that kind of gives me the mindset of, I can really do something powerful. Look at these people. They are happy. They're amazing. So I kind of scroll through the folder for a couple of reasons. 1, inspiration. 2, just to feel the strength and energy and the happiness of those people. And a third thing, just to remember how I created those. Because I don't have patterns and I don't have a catalog of a lot of the stuff I made, some of it I forget completely about, especially now, years and years later. So just looking back and remembering, like, okay, I solved that problem then. Okay, I love how that shoulder is. And just looking at people, that's the first thing. The second thing is, what problem am I trying to solve now, or what am I trying to create? For example, like I said, I have really, really broad shoulders. It doesn't mean I want a big old shirt to look like a football player. I want my really broad shoulders to look feminine. How can I accomplish that? So I'm always driven on the problem and trying to solve it. So I'm going to sit at my sewing chair and I'm going to look at the pictures. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to kind of think. And I'm going to sew and go through a whole process, a whole outfit, problem solving, sewing, all of that in my mind before I ever even cut it on.
Well,
because there are going to be some issues that come. I need to solve them before they come.
Well, speaking of solving a problem, I was on Facebook probably about 2 weeks ago, and I was looking at all of these folks with these masks. Well, before, there's been a shortage of masks across the country. And so I'm scrolling through Facebook, and I see a group of people, some people I know, some people I don't know, and they're wearing these beautiful African print masks. And I'm just scrolling like, where are these people getting these masks from? Because I can't find a traditional mask. Amazon, aren't selling them. It takes months to get them. Some of them are coming from China, and I was concerned about that, because this is where this pandemic, started from. So I was concerned about getting things from China. And then I'm looking at the masks. These folks are very, very creative. And then I scroll through and I see Marjorie Nicole. And I'm like, yo, this woman has created this new mask called the Afro mask. And I said, I want it. I sent it to my children, and my children, who are like me, we love clothes, we love fashion. We like our stuff to match. We like to be sharp whenever we step out. And we said, if we're going to step out, let's step out African style with a lot of culture. Why did you feel that it was important for you to create these Afro masks? And then what was the inspiration behind that?
Well, the inspiration, I was in Zanzibar. I returned home February the 28th, which was the end of February. On my way home, because when I left, stuff hadn't really hit the fan yet. You just kind of heard these rumors about this virus, and you were okay with it. But on the way home, we landed in Ethiopia, a place I stopped to, walk around. And when I landed there were literally thousands and thousands and thousands of Chinese people who had left China and were literally sleeping in the airports. You couldn't find a chair, it was overcrowded, but all these people were walking around with masks on. And I was like, what in the world is going on? Like they were sleeping in sleeping bags and little pallets on the floor and all over the place. And people had masks. And one of the lines were like really, really long. And so I just asked, I said, what is going on? And they said, well, these masks is going to protect, us from what's going on in our country and da-da-da. So I was like, oh my goodness. So now it's really bad. So when I came back to the U.S., I went to the doctors and I was like, listen, I was in 5 countries. I don't know what's up with me. I need to be tested, da-da-da. So my doctor said, well, you need to put on a mask, and handed me this hideous tissue paper blue mask. And I was like, what am I going to do with this? And he was like, I want you to wear it. He's like, you have asthma, you've been traveling. Like, you need to have this mask on all the time. I instantly said to myself, oh, I will wear a mask, but it won't be that one. So I wore that one home, and I came home and I kind of took it apart. It was tearing as I was taking it apart, but I just wanted to see how it was connected and how it was made. And that moment I said, it made me a mask. And the next day I was like, okay, well, my mom goes to dialysis. I want her to have a mask. And I started going through the list of people. And I was probably making them for my family and friends for maybe 3 or 4 days before it even dawned on me, like, hey, other people may want a mask. Let me just put it online to see what happens. And I put it online, and I kid you not, the overwhelming outpour within the first hour. I was like, oh my goodness, people need this. One, we want our people to be safe. We want to represent the culture in all things we do. And we want people to be able to move around, amongst each other. Even though we stand in the house, we got to go to the market, we got to go to the pharmacy. We need to check on the older people in our communities. And we need to keep them safe while keeping ourselves safe by not, talking and not just sneezing, but even talking. Like, you need all of that stuff to stay inside your mask. And that's where the mask, just started.
And they have been traveling all over the globe. When my family and I showed up and we stood behind the Step and Repeat, I did a live feed. The response was amazing. So how many masks you think you've designed thus far?
I hit the 500 and something mark day before yesterday. So I'm probably at about 600, and I have about 1,000 more that's going out in the next week.
And
or two.
how are you keeping up with the demand?
Here's the beautiful part, because this time I'm a full-time entrepreneur, and like most of us, we are struggling, not being able to come out, not being able to interact. We thrive on, us being social. Luckily, I was able to talk to another seamstress friend of mine who was in the same situation I was. And I was like, well, listen, I had the fabric, I had the design, I can teach you how to make it, and we can make these together. And you'll have an income right now, and I'll have an income right now. And then we were still a little overwhelmed, so we hired another friend of ours who was out of work, and she comes over every day, and she cuts them out for the pattern for us. So just building just a little team. And then I hired another young lady recently who used to be an office administrator, but the office is closed. So she's coming in and she's writing down the orders and creating spreadsheets and keeping us organized.
So what type of feeling do you get from making the mask? And is it different from the other designs that you've created?
This is very different. This is a project that is unique to any project I've ever done because I don't mass produce. I tend to create, perfect it, make a couple and move on to something else. But I've been kind of in this space. But I feel really good about it because with every mask we put in the mail, I'm like, I'm keeping one of my sisters or brothers safe. Like, we take so much pride in putting these masks together. And as we're sewing and we're talking about it, I mean, just any little imperfections, we're like, nope, not good enough. And one of the things that we have decided to do, I call us the 5-person team. We have decided to do is every day, one of us in our travels, we take a mask with us. And we see somebody on the front lines, whether it's a police officer, a postal worker, somebody at a clinic or a store, and they don't have a mask on, and we're like, here, like, this is yours for today. Because these people are out here jeopardizing their life. They could be taking this virus home to their families, and they're out making sure that we can get what we need in the world. So that's one of the things that we all look forward to. And when we start the morning the next day, we talk about who we gave our mask to the day before.
Man, Marjorie, that is a great story. With all the negative stories that's taking place, it's real important for us to elevate and highlight and save space for these great stories. How can our listeners get in contact with you, and how can they order a mask?
Well, to get in contact with me is really, really easy. My business is called NSA, and I know a lot of people say NSAA because they're not familiar that it's a word. NSA Creations, NSAA. You can look up NSA Creations on Facebook, NSA Creations on Instagram, or www.nsacreations. So if you just look up NSA Creations, if you just put in your Google, one of my pages will pop up. But if you go through Instagram or Facebook, NSAA Creations with an S, you can find me on any social media. You can email me, you could text me, you could inbox me, you could DM me. All my pages are public. It's all out there, but you could do any of those. And if you want to email me, it's nsacreations@gmail.com. So NSA Creations, NSAA, you can find me on any platform.
And I'm so grateful and honored to call you a friend. You've designed for my children through their rites of passage ceremony. But I love the fact that you are saving lives. You're giving back. And Marjorie, to be real clear, there are a lot of companies who are stepping up to the plate, and we want to thank those companies for doing that, and we want to acknowledge them. But I thank you for doing this. And again, you said for every mask you design, you're saving a life. So thank you for that. But before you get out of here, besides designing clothes for individuals, besides traveling across the country, picking up new designs, I had the opportunity to sit in one of your world famous fashion shows. For our listeners who've never experienced a Marjorie Nicole fashion show, please walk us through that experience.
The fashion shows are my favorite part of the year. And this year we had the 5th annual fashion show, and we had it at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum. And fashion shows for mine all feel the same. You have your Black-owned business vendors on one side of the room. You can go and patronize and support and build up the economy in the Black community. And then you have the fashion show on the other side. That includes some beautiful African-American and African women and men. And they are from sizes 0 to size 26. They every shade of us, and they all wear their natural hair, whether it be locks, shortcuts, whether it be mohawks. They just in their natural state, just enhancing their natural beauty. There's so many other things. African drumming happens, libations happen. We had performances. This year we had Rough Ends, locally born and raised, local grown R&B singer, did a concert, which was amazing. I have adapted this new thing where I mentor a young designer, and they get to open up the show with their own mini show and, have a whole scene to themselves. This year it was Raquel, 17-year-old, born and raised in Baltimore, super talented. She did an excellent job with her scene. And then at the end, there's a VIP meet and greet where we have wine, and you get to meet the designer, me and the other designer. You get to meet the models and the performers and the backstage producers, and you get to meet the artists, and you get to meet everybody who's involved, hair, makeup. So you just sit back, have some champagne, and just meet everybody who put that production together. So it's always my favorite day of the year, and it's the first Sunday in October. Not sure with how things are going this year, if we'll be able to put it together, but it's always amazing to me.
Now, what makes your fashion show so unique as it relates to other fashion shows? New York Fashion Week, every major city has a fashion show. What makes yours so more unique than those other shows that many people are familiar with?
Well, one, they're up close and personal. I've decided to never have a stage, that I want you to almost be able to reach out and touch the models that are walking up and down. The other thing is the access to all of us. The models keep the clothes on, the hair team, the makeup team. I mean, we're all available to you, to talk to you, to interact with you so you can understand what the process was. I even invite some of the VIP guests to the back to kind of see how the process is done. The other thing is the fashion is not like, it's not like an overload, fashion. It's some music, it's some poetry, it's some community, it's some vibing together. And you kind of bring all of that stuff because, in our community, we are really sociable people. We don't really just want to sit down and be like, look, some interactive parts as well. And in addition to everything I make is African fabric, from the gowns that I do on the runway to the little kids' clothes to everything you can think of. It's all authentic African fabric. So it kind of opens up your mind to the possibilities of what can be done with African fabric.
So what is it about African fabric that really excites you? Because you can use any type of other fabric. What is it about African fabric and African culture?
That is where my ancestors started from. When I think about these African fabrics, they were in a place where I desired to be all the time, where I was taken from, where the culture is rich, where I was denied the teachings and the traditions of that land. I can at least wrap myself in the cloth, and I know it came from the land because I purchased it there and brought it back with me. So I get excited about just being able to wrap myself in the culture and traditions that I would deny just because my ancestors were stolen from that place.
So as you're designing each piece, each African print, do you feel a direct connection to your ancestors as you work with this print, as you hold it in your hand, as you run it through the machine?
Every single time, every print, every yard of it, every piece of it, it is really, really, really powerful. And just quickly, I'll just tell this one story. The first time I landed in Africa and I went to the Cape Coast slave dungeons, and I walked through the door of no return, where my ancestors were thought to never, ever return. And I understood that I returned, not just for me, because it was my first time. I'm the first person in my family to travel back home. But I understood that all the generations that I took back with me, all the ancestors, all the life that was lost, all the life that would change and affect it. When I stood in that door of no return, I really understood the impact that not being there, have on us here in the States. And then I further walked out to the ocean, and I put my feet, and I just knew that I'll be working with these fabrics in a way of honoring the culture, but remembering my ancestors while honoring them, while we're all learning at the same time.
Well, I think your ancestors and our ancestors are smiling because we are a reflection of them. You and I share that very similar story. Even though we didn't travel together, I traveled on that same path. I visited that same dungeon. I walked through those doors. I walked through the sand and put my body in that ocean and imagine what it looked like to be stripped from your land, what it felt like for moms who had babies that were stripped from them, and then to them be taken to a foreign land. And so I'm grateful that you do feel those ancestors. And I'm sure that the love that you're putting into the fabric, it resonates with the people that are wearing it. It reminds me of this great scene in Like Water for Chocolate, one of my favorite movies. It has nothing to do with fabric, but this grandmother is in the kitchen, Marjorie, and she's making food. And what's happening is, in most cultures, like Latin cultures and African cultures, you know, we put our love into our food, but there's this scene, Marjorie, while she's making the food, she's in tears. And then after that, when she serves the food, all of a sudden, many of the people that came over to partake in the meal, they all got sick because this woman who was having this emotional breakdown, that feeling went into the food. And just like the opposite, when she was feeling good about the food, that then they felt much better. And so I can only imagine what that feels like. You with this fabric, you using authentic fabric, not fabric made in other countries. And it's no disrespect to those countries, but you know the quality of the African fabric from our ancestors means a lot. So I can only imagine when someone puts on a Marjorie Nicole design, be it a kufi, be it a dashiki, be it an umbrella, be it some socks or some earrings, I'm sure they're feeling that same spirit that you're feeling, and that it's resonating across the country. And I thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. And that's my prayer. My prayer is that they feel all the love. And then you're going to make me want to go watch this movie.
You're going to watch what movie?
I want to see her make the food and her feel like, you know, I get inspired by other people doing great things in their own lane.
Hey, that movie will bring you to it's a powerful film, Like Water for Chocolate. I love it. It's a film that I think it was nominated for tons of awards. Not sure if they won it. But again, it's the same thing. So again, I thank you. And if you have not attended a Marjorie Nicole fashion show, do yourself a favor. Go to the show. The shows are amazing. Hopefully the COVID-19 won't halt the show, but I'm sure Marjorie is so creative. She's going to figure out a way to put these people on stage and allow you to see her fashions on there. So,
oh, thank you. And one other thing I just want to mention before we hang up. One of the people that I am truly, truly inspired by is Ann Lowe. And she's one of the reasons that I decided to do public displays of my fashion, which in the form of a fashion show. She was the Black designer who designed Jackie's old wedding gown. And she used 250 yards of tulle. And if you saw, you know how crazy that is. The gown is beautiful. It's still talked about today. And when Jackie O was asked at her wedding who made this beautiful wedding gown, she said a Black tailor. Never mentioned her name. She never got credit for it the whole time she was alive. It wasn't figured out till she made that gown to years after her death.
Wow.
I don't want that to be the memory of just the greatness that we are. And we've been in this lane for many, many years, designing things that people don't even know about. Imagine making Jackie O wedding dress and just being excited and doing that. And she says publicly, oh, a Black tailor, not even a designer. A Black tailor made it and refused to mention the name. So that's one of the things that inspired me. I keep in the back of my mind. I can say her name, and I do say her name often, and that's just something that keeps me pushing forward.
And it's important to say her name. You know, how dare her say a Black designer, but not saying who the designer was. Could you imagine if she would have named who the designer was? I think about Michelle Obama when she names those designers, when she names her hairstylist. So again, the fact that Jackie O did have a Black designer is great, but the fact that she would not name, and when we know calling out names in African cultures are so important. So Marjorie Nicole, we're going to call out your name, and everybody that wears that mask is going to keep calling your name. My favorite part of the show is called the Super Bomb Questions. And so now we're going to sort of shift gears. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need you to respond as quickly as possible. And it's an opportunity for our listeners to get another side of you, just to see what's in Marjorie's head. And even though we've gotten in your head just a little bit with your creations, we want to push you a little further. So here we go, Marjorie. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So what's your favorite word?
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
What's your favorite quote or spiritual verse?
That I'd rather want something I don't have than have something I don't want.
What's your superpower?
My superpower is sewing.
What's your spirit animal or animal spirit?
My spirit animal is a bull because I'm a Taurus.
What moves you to tears of joy?
Babies and children having a great time.
What moves you to tears of sorrow?
sickness, long suffering.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
Spend time with my family.
If you were stranded on a desert island, which 3 items would you bring with you?
A knife, a blanket, and a needle to sew.
If you were in the Mrs. America talent competition, what would your talent be?
My talent would be dancing.
And we're going to dance on out of here. Marjorie Nicole, I want to thank you for joining me in the BalmShelter. I also want to thank my engineer, Alec Blanc, my producer, Kimberly Peterson, Supremacy for our theme music, and all of you for listening. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and stop being stingy and share me with your friends. We're on every platform out there, every podcast platform. So check us out. And as always, believe that something wonderful is about to happen and that some people miss the message because they're too busy looking for the mess. Thanks for tuning in, and do something for someone else other than yourself today. You've been listening to Sound Bombing. Marjorie, thank you for joining me in the BalmShelter today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for getting all of this great information out to the people. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you for having me.
All right, appreciate you. Take care. Peace.